All right, a quick end of day recap and a little bit of commentary here, starting off with ES. Essentially, just for context, we came into the session just essentially wanting to see whether or not buyers had continued risk appetite up through that prior day high, which was the 4380 area. So, as a reminder, just for even more context, we were looking for a break of the 4300 to trigger a breakout that took place with NFP, kind of marked a local low last week, potentially a seasonal low, something that we have been looking for. Sunday night futures gap down. You want to see that 4300 hold. It holds. Get a nice trend day yesterday. Today, just looking for that continuation move up through 4380 to then test some of our upside targets at 4400, a big psychological level, and then the 4420. Now, as a reminder, the significance of that 4420, when I switch into the regular trading hours chart, you can see there's a big gap overhead here. All right. And so essentially it's no real surprise that we saw some selling. There's going to be pretty much the upside target from anyone grabbing those 4,300 longs or those 4,280 longs. Their main macro kind of big picture target is the 4,420, right? So we start to see some selling there. And the question becomes what's next? And so for tomorrow, we do have some data tomorrow as well as FOMC minutes. I'm pretty much just going to be looking to assess the reaction here versus this 4,400 and the 4,420. Obviously, buyers have had the ball. Buyers have been in control for the past few sessions. If they can break that 4,420, we've got a pretty clean shot at closing that gap. Now, if bears end up defending that gap fill, at least in the, or that gap, excuse me, at least in the near term, what are we going to be looking at? Well, I'll look at potentially 4380 down into last week's high, the 4360. This will be an important level for the buyers, for bulls to be defending, and it aligns again with the weekly setup here. If I switch over to the weekly chart, take these lines off so we could see it more clearly, we're working a weekly hammer, right? We're working the first upside week after 5 consecutive weeks of selling. And so given the current shape and the fact that we're almost halfway through the week here of the weekly candle, there are, of course, still a few days left. I'm not too worried about continued downside after this hammer. Check the volume, right? I do still maintain that this was likely a seasonal low. And so I'm primarily focused on those upside trades. Doesn't mean I won't short. Doesn't mean that the market won't see reversals like we did intraday today. Just means that I'm primarily interested in those long setups intraday. And so what I really want to see is potentially, a retest of some of our levels of interest. If we do see that selling, to be a buyer. Now, if this does just continue to materialize higher, right, we look for those kind of more shallow pullbacks, tighter areas to get involved, and just take it from there. Again, tomorrow, primarily just looking at this reaction versus the 4,400. The tricky thing about this current setup is that we are now within the prior day range and we're not near either of the edges, right? So I'll be very interested to see what the overnight action looks like. Ideally, I always like to be trading near the prior day edge. So that's going to be prior day low or prior day high, and open at 4,400 pretty much puts us right in the midpoint of today's range. It will definitely be a key level to watch. I'm sure most of the volume from today's session is right there at 4,400. And so we could use that as a pivot in the near term. So that's pretty much the watch for ES tomorrow, 4,400, 4,420, right? As far as individual names, we have quite a few. I'm looking at AI. There's a daily reversal developing here up through the 200 MA now. Be treating this as a second day trade, not triggering on the RVOL, but I believe the RVOL tool is slightly skewed just because of these massive volume days from back here. What I do want to see is potential continuation up through this 27, but because of the current volume, this is not a true second day trade. So we'll be treating this more so like a daily reversal and see if that volume materializes during tomorrow's session. From there, we have Billy. This one actually did have some pretty big volume today. We're looking again at a daily reversal. Strong China name. We want to see if this can show any type of continuation up through today's high. We have ENPH, another reversal idea. Decent volume today. Let me make this daily chart full screen. So we want to see some continuation up through 127. Potentially a change in character, a reclaim of that 50 MA. Pretty straightforward setup there. We also have FUTU as a second day trade. This one's a little tougher simply because we do have 3 days of strength now. Tough to be a buyer up here. But when we zoom out, there's just a big base, right? Huge base. And so I would like to see potential continuation here up above 63. All the volume from this week so far has transacted at 63. So we'll see if that is distribution or not. Also have PanW on the individual names list. This is a daily breakout. We talked about it this morning. I was looking for more volume. Still below average. Still below average. So any daily breakout, ideal we're trading on big volume. It hasn't really triggered yet. Technically, we're looking for it above 260. And so we'll see if the volume materializes tomorrow, if that continues with strength. Next up is SE, another daily reversal. Good volume today, right? Pretty clean action. Look at this move intraday. Look at that. Wow. So near-term structure, overhead, over today's high essentially, it's just a big daily gap, right? So looking for some strength above 45.5 on SE. Then we have SHOP still on the swing watch versus the 200 MA. So pretty straightforward stuff for tomorrow. Again, ES just looking at that 4,400. Clearly a ton of volume being done all through here. I mean, this is just churn, sideways chop for about a couple hours, right? And so clearly someone is either accumulating or distributing here. Depending on the overnight action, we may have a decent reference point to work with. I assume that with the overnight action, we'll probably be trading away from this 4,400. But that's pretty much the watch. Any questions on any of that? Let me make sure my chat is working. Yes, it is. Okay. Pretty killer action today, I must say. These are those easier conditions that we've been looking for. More straightforward trading. You don't have a lot of the two-way trading can be really good. I prefer days like today. Makes it easier. Makes it much easier when you have one party primarily in control. And for the past 3 days, that's been buyers. When the markets are turning, like last week and the week prior, they're trying to turn. That's when it gets really tricky. Easy to get burned in that type of action. So we'll see. We'll see if they can show, again, some continuation. I mean, this, like I said, kind of a expected area for sellers to materialize. You have the daily structure right there, right? So it wouldn't be all that surprising to have a slight pullback, mark a higher low, something like that. Like, let me get the pen. Well, something like this maybe, right? So just thinking out loud here. You always want to keep an open mind with these kind of things about how price can unfold, potential scenarios to consider. Take it from there. All right. Well, if there's no questions, I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Hope everyone had a productive session, a profitable session. If not, make sure you're extracting those lessons from your losses. Don't let the losses go to waste. A loss is only a true loss if you're not extracting a lesson from it. So review, and I'll see you guys in the morning. Have a good afternoon. Later.